To talk about search scopes, I want to look at a pretend site I've been playing with. I went and fetched some government data from data.gov to populate some lists with just random data that I could use to search in some lists. And so on this site, I created a site, AK, and inside of this site, I have several lists. One of the lists, if I view all site content, you can see that I've created an inspection list. And the inspection list shows, you can see the URL here, it's AK lists inspection. And it tells you where in Alaska these inspections occurred. And a bunch of them, or some of them, happened at Riverbend, so I just picked the first one to use as a search term. So if I want to search this list, and I want to find only things where I match something in Riverbend, then that'll work all right. But just to mix things up a little bit, I went to AK and I also created a Word document in there called River. Oops, let's see. Let me view that in the browser. View in browser. And this is a very fancy document in that it just contains the word Riverbend. So I wanted to make sure this document could return itself in a search result too. And so let's see. So if I'm on this site now, right, and I do a search for Riverbend, you can see I've done this before. I was just testing this all out and kind of learned this today, so this is kind of fun. Okay, so I do the search for Riverbend. It will return my Word document, and it will return just the things from that list, because the default search scope is for this site. If I want to go outside of this site, though, I have some repeated records in some other places. Let me go up to my Bradley's Corner site and do the same search, Riverbend. And this time I don't get just those 6 results, I get 35 results, because there are some of these that are other places in the hierarchy. And you see this drop down, this site, now it's just doing a search within my Bradley's Corner site and all the subsites below it, including the 2 subsites, one for Alaska and then some other copies of that list that I put in some other places. I was trying to play with roll-ups. So Riverbend shows up in many more places, but I don't have a good way using the search facets that come here to narrow that down right off the bat. If I do the site over here, however, I can say, okay, go into the business area and go into Bradley, and then I can say, oh, here are the things. I want to go only into the shared documents, and then I'll only get River. If I go back and I go into Bradley and show more, and instead of going into shared documents for Alaska, I go into lists, then I'll get those 5. So I can browse and target that list pretty specifically. But that doesn't give my users a fast way to jump straight to that list. So to do that, we've got to create a search scope, and then we've got to enable that search scope on the site, and then we've got to enable a search center somewhere in our site collection. So to be able to do all these things, you have to be a site collection administrator, because you need to be able to get to the settings for the whole site collection, which is where you can define this search scope stuff. All right. So I earlier, at the top level site, I had gone and let me just go up to that top level site. When I had made a new site, one of the types of a site is called a basic search center or an enterprise search center. I just used the basic search center, and I just created a my site /search is what I did. So to see what that looks like, let me just take you to that page. It's really fancy. That's what a search center looks like. So there's pretty much nothing to a search center, but I can do a search here for Riverbend, and I get those same 35 results that I got by typing in the box here and the same search facets that were available. So that's what a search center is. It's a place specifically for search. You need to have one of those if you want to do this other snazzy thing. So create a search area for your site collection, and then go to your site settings, and you have to go to the site collection administration settings. So I'll click this link, go to top level site settings, and now in site collection administration, there's 3 sections that are specific to search. We don't have fast search installed in our SharePoint farm, so these 3 won't do anything for you. They'll just return errors because that feature's uninstalled. But search settings is the one we're going to come back to in a minute. So that's where you tell it to allow you to use these scopes. But first, we've got to configure a special scope. So in search scopes, you come here and you can create a new scope. Again, you have to be the site collection administrator to be able to create this scope. When you create a new scope, it wants you to give it a title, and then it tells you should it appear at the search dropdown, should it appear in the advanced search, and should you use the default search results page. If you want, you can have search results pages that you custom format that you can build in SharePoint Designer or whatnot, but we'll just use the default search results page. So that's what I did when I built this search AK list. In fact, I won't delete that off just now, but let's go ahead and do another one. Search AK list again, and I do want it to appear in the search dropdown. So I'll say OK, and here it appears, and you'll notice that this search scope doesn't have any rules that define it. So I want to add some rules, and one of the things I want to do is I want to say, only show me, if you use this search scope, only show me things for this particular address. To get to this address, though, I've got to add one other thing here. Let me just open a new tab so we can see what I'm doing here. I'm going to go to /bus. Yeah, let me go to my, so you see this is my Alaska list, right? And then, and inside of there I've got, oops, I need to go back into that inspection list, which I didn't put on my short URL. So there's the inspection list. Okay, so this inspection list, I don't want to use the page or forms or anything else here at the end. That's not the bit that I want. But all of the list items will start with this part of the URL. So I'm going to copy that. And then I'm going to say, yes, only use, and you got these 3 choices, right? But we want to use the web address. So only use this. And I want to do more than just include it. I want to require. If you're going to use this scope, be sure it matches this web address. And I say OK. You can chain up these rules. You can add several rules so that you can get you can include all these things, but exclude these specific types of things, exclude certain authors or whatever else. And then every 15 minutes, the search application updates stuff. So it'll tell you that it's not going to be ready for a few more minutes, depending on when the last time is it happened to have run. It looks like it was just about 2 minutes ago. So there's my search scope. So I've got this search AK list. I just did exactly the same thing you saw me do, and so we don't have to wait the 15 minutes. And then you need to have a search center. Now I told you that I created a search center earlier here at this site. So the search center, again, I want to leave off the page of the search center and just the website of the search center. Let's just go grab that URL. Now that I have a scope, I'm going to go back to Site Actions and Site Settings and the Site Collection Settings. You have to go to the top level site if you're not there. And this time, let's go to Search Settings. So custom scopes, which is what we just created, are not enabled by default, but we want to enable them. And if you're going to enable them, you have to have a search center, and you have to tell it the address of your search center. It doesn't have to be in your site collection. You can go use some other search center if you want, I suppose. But anyway, we'll use this search center that we just created for our own site collection. So I paste that in, and then I choose, do you want to show the scopes drop down and default to the contextual scope? And you've got a whole bunch of other choices. A similar one would be to show and then default to your contextual scope. So pretty similar. So I'm going to change that and say OK. And now when I go to my Edge Services site, hey, I've got a drop-down list that appears before my search box. So if I want to search, the default is to search this whole site. That's the scope, right? But I can search just to search the AK list and do Riverbend. And now when I search, it jumps me to the search result page and I see just the results of this list. So it's pretty easy to allow your users to jump to a search result page that filters exactly the way they want. There's nothing that stops them from coming in and searching in more detail from the general search result. And I haven't learned a whole lot about how to tweak this because I'm not sure like how to jump to a different scope from here. But what is cool is that if you care about these search results, you can do other things. You can create an RSS feed based on these search results. You can create an alert based on these search results. So every time this search changes, it can send you an email, for example, so you don't have to come and search all the time for new options. It'll just give you anytime you get another match on this result. Or if you do search this location from Windows Explorer, it will allow you from the Start menu in Windows to search, and this location would be included in searches that you do there in addition to your computer being searched. So Search in SharePoint gives you a lot of power with those lists. Try it out. And I hope to learn more too. So if you learn more, give us some feedback on the sp.byu.edu site. We'd love to share.